In this video, we're going to be displaying the bricks that were created, from the class that was created in the last video. So, we are going to be representing these bricks with a two-dimensional array, which is just kind of like a grid. And if you've gone over some of the earlier parts of the class, you should know that an array is created in this fashion with two sets of open and closed braces, and then you say the name. So an array, a two-dimensional array or a single-dimensional array can be created of any type. In this case, we're going to make a two-dimensional array or grid of brick objects. And so then we need to type a semicolon there. Now, we are going to use these things called final ints, which is just a way to tell ourselves what the numbers represent, basically, rather than just writing random numbers. So how many bricks do we want in our array? Well, I have predetermined that we want about 4 rows of bricks and about 9 columns of bricks, and that's what we're going to start with. So I'm going to create a final int, and actually I'm going to create it static, just in case, it's not super important what that means, frankly. And I'm going to call this num calls and make it equal to 9. And then we're going to do a static final int num rows. And this is going to be set to 4 initially. Now these next two are going to be used in the drawing of our bricks. So this is going to be grid size. And then we're going to have a value that represents the kind of boundary or squish around the bricks. And this will be called offset. Oops. Capital offset. And this will equal 60 also. Okay, so we're going to use these very quickly so that hopefully it becomes a little bit more clear why we're doing this. Okay, so we're gonna, after we create the ball, we're going to initialize the two-dimensional array that represents the brick objects by saying num rows and num calls. So what we've done here, equals new bricks equals new brick. Num rows, num calls. So, sorry, I was screwing that up as I was typing. It's important to do it this way. So the name of the array is bricks, and we want this to be a new array of brick objects. And we want there to be this many rows and this many columns in our little grid. Okay, so now this is a 4x9 grid of bricks, and we still have to generate the brick objects. We've built the storage containers at this point, but we haven't actually put the objects in there. And so at this point, we're going to create a couple different methods to add our bricks to our array. So actually just one, and this method is going to be called, it's a void method, it doesn't return anything, and it's going to be called generate bricks. Now this method will use loops to generate the bricks. So int I equals 0, I is less than, or actually let's use row. So for int row equals 0, row is less than num rows, row plus plus. And then we're going to do another loop for the columns. So for int call equals 0, column is less than num calls, call plus plus. So what these two loops do is just make sure that we iterate over everything within the bricks array. So we say we want to do the outer loop as many times as there are rows, and we want to do the inner loop as many times as there are columns. Okay, and so at each of these locations, at row, column, we want to create a new brick object. And if you remember, the brick constructor takes x and y as its parameters. So we need to give it a location, x and y. We're going to do that based on the row values and the column values. And we're also going to do it based on the grid size and the offset. So what I'm going to do here is say the new brick, the x coordinate is actually the column. So column times grid size plus offset, that's the x value. And then we're going to do the row times the grid size plus the offset. Now, let's just talk about this quick. So this is the column. So it could be column 0 up through column, I believe they're 9. Yeah, so the last index is column 8. So it could be 8 times 60 plus 60. And for the row, they go through 0, 1, 2, 3. So that could be, up to 180. So 3 times grid size plus 60 is 240. So our grids are going to have a buffer around the outside, as well as they're going to be spaced out correctly. So let's create a method to display the bricks, and then we're going to actually display them. So we're going to have a method called void display bricks. And this method is just going to be a way to kind of give a name to this function so that our other functions don't get too cluttered. So for brick row bricks, I'm going to type this all and then I'm going to explain it. And then for row B, or for brick B row. Now, if b.get is active, b.display. And I haven't created the get is active method in this tutorial yet, so let's go over to the brick class and create the Boolean method that returns a Boolean called get is active. And this method, all it's going to do is return the value of is active. And now we'll go back and explain this. So the display bricks method, what is this doing? Well, this is what's called an enhanced for loop. And what it says is, okay, create a temporary object of this type. So one row of bricks. The outer loop does one row of bricks at a time. Dump that row of bricks into the variable called row. And look at this array, this two-dimensional array. So this is the type of object, this is the temporary, and this is the thing to look at. Then the interior loop does brick, temporary object, just a brick now, not a row of bricks or an array of bricks, and we call that object B, and we say row, and the smart loops here, these enhanced for loops, know how to sequentially dump each item into the temporary container that we've set. So the outer loop dumps each row in the bricks array into the temporary container called row, and then the interior loop takes that row right here and dumps each brick item into it sequentially, and then inside the for loop we just say if the brick is active, display the brick. Okay, and so now if we run our code, nothing is going to happen yet because I forgot to actually make use of the generate bricks and display bricks methods. Alright, so after we create the bricks, here we create the brick array, let's actually generate bricks. And then in the draw method, let's display. Oh, the display method is down here. And we're going to display bricks. And this should actually produce some bricks up on our screen. Cool. So there they are. They're not colliding with the ball just yet, but that'll come in the next video.